So, us alleged conspiracy theorists, let's just break that down as well. What is a conspiracy? It is where two or more people come together, right, and do something that is, they've planned something. They're acting in league with each other. So, to have a theory that, say for instance, people within the BBC, for instance, are withholding evidence, withholding the truth, leading you down a garden path or whatever, to think that is allegedly being a conspiracy theorist. But we'll have a watch of this.
One note of caution: always be careful. It's important to check all the sources. They might not be giving you the full picture, or they might have made, an innocent mistake. So you need to be careful. Only use those sources that you trust. Are they likely to have accurate information on the story? How much checking do you need to do? Depends on the type of source, but it's usually a good idea to check the information with at least 2 different sources. That's our policy. So we have truth and accuracy, 2 of the BBC's basic news values. The audience need to trust you, and that depends on you being accurate. They're important values, and they'll help you become not just a reporter, but a trusted school reporter.
So as you can see, that's old Hue Edwards there, telling you you should trust him, trust his type, trust those people, trust but verify, actually, if I can remember correctly, was what they said during Glasnost between the Americans and Gorbachev. So anyway, that was quite a digression there, but anyway, we now know the truth about Hugh Edwards, and more of it is coming out at the time, right? So, I'm innocent, all the rest of it. Turns out he's very not innocent. Now, people went to the BBC, particularly the parents of one individual, right, and complained with the evidence and said, what are you going to do about it? To which the BBC protected and guarded Hugh Edwards until a point that they couldn't do it anymore. And the reason they couldn't do it is because the parents went to the Sun, and the Sun actually had the minerals to come out with a story without naming Hugh Edwards, right? Fine. And then Hugh Edwards' missus comes out and says he's got terrible depression. And then the left come out to protect Hugh Edwards, like, what's the name of that little snivelling git? He'll come to me in a second. But the ex-editor of The Sun came out and condemned the action. Where the fuck is that? Owen Jones. He came out and condemned it. There were many others. They were literally beside themselves with incredulity and anger because somebody had dared to question the Saint Hugh Edwards, literally the pinnacle of all things honest and truthful, the pinnacle of the BBC. And to be honest, whereas the pinnacle of all things honest and truthful was quite a crock of shit, the pinnacle of the BBC might not be too far from the mark. Now, it would seem to me that the BBC have been told from as far back as the 70s, go on mate, yeah, there you go, there's a good lad, from as far back as the 70s, that people like Jimmy Savile were up to no good. There would have been others. I'm pretty sure that people would have probably complained about Timey Kangaroo Down Sport. I'm not talking that particular action, but the guy that did it, Rolf Harris. And then there was others, him from It's a Knockout, and numerous others. However, I expect, but this is a conspiracy theorist, that many others have been complained about and the BBC have covered it up. I mean, let's be honest, Jill Dando apparently was going to out some of the people that were doing this, okay? Now, a conspiracy theorist says that she was killed because of that. I have no idea, and I certainly am not going to assert that because there's no evidence at all to prove it. However, she was about to out it. Now, others have shown their distrust, distaste. Johnny Rotten, I believe, and they literally banned him, okay? Turns out that everything he was saying was true. Now, wasn't that woman, she's passed away now, that was married to Bob Geldof and then later on him from INXS, wasn't she sat on the bed with, I think it might have been Gary Glitter, had literally slated him. Now, many other bands that have come forward, boy bands, have come out and said that there is a level of evil within the music industry and the system, BBC, etc., as a whole. Now, let's not just say it's the BBC, because we all know that the actual Hollywood system, the film system, and all the rest of it, you can't get on until you go down, or whatever. And they're not fussy whether it's a man or a woman, I don't think, some of them. But let's get back to the point. There's many people in YouTube, like myself, and many other people on different apps and platforms, that are telling you not to trust the state machine, all right? Because I'll give you another example, right? The BBC is their, okay, British Broadcasting Corporation, and it's been the pinnacle of where you got your news, where you got your information, and in some cases, that, along with the papers back in the day, gave you a perspective of what was right and what was wrong in the world, who was the bad guys and who was the good guys. And we believed it. We had no reason not to. But as we now know that that's not the case, and some of the horror stories from the 70s, 80s, 90s, noughties, and so on, is coming out, and the people that we held high are not trusted. Now, it might be interesting for you to know, and it's been proved, that many anchors, TV producers, pop stars, film stars, back in the 80s and the 70s and stuff, were actually CIA assets. Imagine, right? I don't know about any of the British stars, but when you've got people in famous positions that aren't being truthful in what they do, whether it be portraying themselves as something they're clearly not. I mean, there's been some question about Elvis being a bit of a wrong-un. Well, there it is. But these people that we were taught to hold in high regard have turned out to be some of the worst characters that there are. And yet, the system, like you've just seen, is still telling us that we have to trust them because they are the official news source. And now there will be new news channels come out late on the parade, new kids on the block, if you like. And they will say that you couldn't trust the old bunch, but we're the new bunch. You should not think that maybe they were put forward by the same type of organisations and groups of people that owned the previous organisations and realised that no matter what they did with that organisation, that his reputation was so badly tarnished that they needed to start something new that they could control. Now, take YouTube for instance. There was a woman very high up in the management over in Ireland who said it was their job, it's what they had to do to change people's view of the world, change people's perception of the world, and give them a reality that they had shaped for them. Basically, thought policing. Telling you who was the bad guys, who are the good guys, who to like, who not to like, how to go along with whatever fashion, what was credible, what wasn't credible, what was, in some cases, the latest thing. Like kids eating Tide Pods and shit like that, ridiculous. But they let things trend that they see good, and they hold stuff back which really goes against what they're trying to achieve. So if people are out there pointing out the problems with multiculturalism, you generally find that they're not actually going to have a video that gets millions and millions of views. And yet some idiot doing some really stupid fucking dance scene during a lockdown or whatever, massive. You know, kids doing some of the worst things, viral. Parents being shit parents, viral. You know, the breakdown of our society, viral. You know, it's like that. And yet, when you look at places like China, right, which isn't a nice place, but apparently according to some it's better than here, right? I don't know, I haven't been, but I'm just going on what I've been told by people who have been there. They control their social media, so it gives you a great view of their country. They've got scholars, academics, hard workers, musicians, great people. And it will put to the bottom of the pile people doing what we put to the top of the pile. You You've got to ask yourself the question, why? But yet again, we're led to the same thing, that who do you trust? Right, well, do these people have an agenda? Did they push things in the past that turned out to be unwholesome, bad for your health, or just generally wrong, right? How many times have they got it wrong? Remember when they were pushing the weapons of mass destruction and how bad Saddam Hussein was? No, I'm not saying he was a good person, but that war was, like many wars, a phony war. Not for the people that fought it, but for the reasons it was fought and what these people went and did and where they protected. It was all about money and power and the protection of oil, which is like gold to those in power within UK, America, whatever, around the world. You know, everything we have is either powered by, produced by, or has a lot to do with petroleum spirits, petroleum I should say. You could take pharmaceuticals, plastics, engineering, you know, the use of fuels for heating, for powering something, for driving something. You know, this stuff, take away the fuel, we're in a load of trouble. So this is why we've gone to war. Now, these people in things like the BBC, with people like Hue Edwards, would have been pushing that. They would have been pushing the agenda that Russia had been totally bad and that Ukraine was great. Although Ukraine at the time were creating or committing what would have been perpetrated as a genocide against Russian-speaking individuals within their borders, and that the fact that the Russian president had pointed this out and had begged the international community to do something about it for ages, and then ended up having to do something about it, they say he's the bad guy, all right? These people were the ones that told you to embrace multiculturalism and the trans community. These people pushed really hard on Black Lives Matter, and when you look at all of these things, it turned out to be bad for us. Now, Hugh Edwards has been cut loose and dropped by the system that he loved, the system that protected him for years and let him go about his degenerate ways. I have to say that I feel sorry for his kids, and I feel sorry for his ex-wife. I mean, I don't know quite at what point she twigged that something's wrong here, but either so, I'm assuming that she went into it not knowing that he is what he is, and that he'd kept the secret from her from a long time. But it must have been heartbreaking when she found out. So I feel sorry for her and the kids. But for everybody else that had dealings with him, that had an inclination that he was that way, but yet still stayed with him because, to be honest, he was quite powerful in his position, I kind of condemn you. In so much as you've harboured a person that could have been stopped a lot earlier and would have done a lot less harm. So, some of that, as they say, the blood's on you. But as we go forward, we're going to find thousands of these people. And if to be honest, if, say, for instance, this thing that we're going through, this transformation in our country, in the world, actually turns out that the good people win, God fucking hope, right? But if they did, and then they start going through the police files on what they knew about people in the BBC, things like that, right? And then they started doing the right thing, and prosecution after prosecution against people who were degenerate, people are affecting kids, or rape people, or also people that pushed illegal acts, so on and so forth. We're going to need a lot of new prisons. I can only hope that it happens in my lifetime. And I'd like to think that somehow people like myself and you watching have played some sort of a part in this, because it seems to me that the left, not all, some, that come out and protect these degenerates, like some of the people that have been proven in the trans community that they were wrong, right? Some of the people in the BBC and other things like that, ITV, some of the people within the political realm or whatever, police, you know, when all these people, somebody makes an accusation and the left seem to want to protect many of them, all right? Why? You're either simple or you're a wrong. Now you can make that choice, not for me to make. But I want to see if anybody apologises, say for instance, to the the editor of The Sun for going ahead with that story, having the courage to actually do some honest reporting. And what happened? Because of him going ahead with it, we now have Hugh Edwards in court. And if more people did the same, here's a thought, more people would buy your papers because they'd start to have some trust in you. Shitty editing and shitty reporting and lame and lazy reporting, just coming out and calling everybody a name rather than making the effort to go and research it, is another example of good reporting. When you look at the Watergate scandal, right? Who knew what and when? There were two reporters and they went after this story, and if you remember, it was called, one of the sources was called Deep Throat, because that was a film out at the time. A film that I might add was made by the Mafia, and to date is the biggest financial grossing X-rated film ever. I only learned that the other day. That film went viral, and it was pushed by the Mafia. There you go, useless fact. But anyway, there's been another reporter who actually tried to do the right thing, Gary Webb. And he tried to report on the arms contra, the drugs trafficking back into the America, the drugs turning into money, the money turning into arms, the arms going to these contras. And he got apparently suicided himself, as many apparently do. But he did the right thing. Turned out it was bad for him. But this is what we need. We need honest reporting. We need people to have the balls to go ahead and go, no, I'm actually going to say the truth. Anyway, one day I hope that'll happen. But at the moment, it's a few and far between thing. Anyway, I shall leave you to it, and I'll speak to you in a bit.